transport economics, and I'm very glad to moderate this round table with people who has been deeply involved in this very interesting project. So I'd like to focus on some specific questions or issues which in this in that category of project is still present. First, what are really priorities? Because sometimes these project frameworks are very, very wide, and in my opinion we need to really select priorities which are not only priorities determined by politicians, but also by the market, by the ratio between benefits and costs. So my first question is, what could it be done to really let emerge a set of priorities which are not so wide, because a project clearly identifies, and the strategy, EUSAIR strategies identify some targets, but priorities probably are a very important issue. Also adopting a realistic approach. Realistic, in my opinion, means to identify real market potentials, which is a matter also of private operators' interest in investing in the market. What can be, also in the short, medium terms, the role played by the private investors in small or more larger investments, for example, terminals in ports, also for ferry traffic, or new bus connections. So what is the role, and what are difficulties in letting private investors in a playing potential? Because, for example, a very important question is, what are today difficulties for private operators to enter these markets? It is a matter of liberalization, of constraints, political constraints sometimes, market monopolies or interests, local interests protected. So, and this is the second focus. Third, something about railway potential. Is it credible, and where? It is related to realistic approach to the project. And fourth and last, what are opportunities to adopt at Adriatic Ionian region some how to do incentive framework? Because we know, for example, that for intermodality the Marco Polo project crashed down because it was really unable to play a fair role in the market. It supported a lot companies, but distorting the market, and probably this was the cause for its erasing, for cancelling. But today, is there room for a new framework to support fairly start-ups services in the area, and what could be the framework, the most fitting framework? So these are just key questions to identify what could be the implementation phase of EUSAIR in terms of a realistic and really effective approach to attract investment and to focus priorities. So, sorry for this introduction, but I hope that it is useful to focus the discussion, and I would like to give the floor to the first speaker, who is Stefano Dondi, Institute of Transport and Logistics Foundation, ITL Bologna. Please.
Maybe this is better. So good morning to everybody. Thank you for your introduction. And these questions are quite challenging, but I think that this board will be for sure able to support and provide input to that. We as ITL, I don't know if you know us, are an institute owned by the regional government of Emilia-Romagna region and several municipalities settled in the region. One of our main shareholders is also the Port Authority of Ravenna, and this way we cover let's say most of the topic related to passenger and the freight transport issues. We have been collaborating with some of you and work to this topic in the last years, and let's say that some of the activities have been covered, some of others are still to be searched, as they are quite innovative issues. Let's say that to answer to your your question, which is the priority, well, we know that the Adriatic Ionian area is quite a balance. There are so many differences among the countries in terms of infrastructure, in terms of heritage, in terms of service offer. So the first issue, let's say that the priority is to mind the gap that exists between the countries, and let's say that maybe the first and most important issue is to sell the Adriatic Ion as a unique market point for users, for consumers. In terms of priorities, let's say that we strongly consider the issue of offering improved services to the consumer, and renovate, introduce new infrastructure as the starting point for the discussion. Let's say that our authority can be seen as a gateway to passenger and to freight towards other territories like Central Europe, even other part of the European countries. So for these issues, making passengers and freight transport smoother is the big issues. In terms of promotion of the territory, let's say that we have to reduce the gap between the infrastructure services and the transport access opportunities to better connect the coast to the hinterland. In this sense, what we know is that if we talk about, for instance, passenger traffic, whenever a passenger it is from standard traffic or a cruise sector, approach the coast coming from the sea, the first issue is what can I do here? Most of the passenger usually stop their travel within the area of the city, of the terminal where the cruise or the ferries approach. But we all know that there is a lot to see all around the city, but also in more, let's say, more not close, but let's say far destination, also within, for instance, 100 kilometers. We know that from the coast, if I can bring the example of Emilia-Romagna region, from the coast of Ravenna, several buses and touristic services go till the territories of Bologna and Modena. So the issue here is provide service to the user, to the consumer, in order to better sell the territory that is to be considered the hinterland of the gateway. To do this, I think that we think that technology can strongly support the improvement of the offer visibility. In this sense, maybe by providing ICT services like the applications for passengers that can be easily downloaded from the users when they come to our territories, can be an added value to promote in advance. The knowledge of the territory and the service that can be offered. This is the starting point from the issue from our point of view. The other issue is about providing better services in terms of intermodality. We all know that in our territories, let's say, covered by this EUSAIR region, the macro strategy, there are several territories apart from the coastal areas that are lacking of services to connect these remote areas with big nodes. So there is an issue of providing better transport services. And we can add one issue that is a topic of research we have seen at the moment, is also the integration of public services with the private offer. All these schemes of sharing of traffic resources, let's say cars, let's say taxis, let's say other kind of services might be revised in a new way, in a way that where the public cannot, can respond, can answer to the request of the user, then the integration with private services can integrate the offer. To answer to your last question about the incentive framework, at the same time we can say that as you mentioned, the startup, the bird of startups in terms of ICT innovations to support the growing of the touristic sector maybe can be fashion added value. As this is, we know the area is very touristic, has very touristic characteristics, and in order to, let's say, cover the needs of the users, maybe we have to provide much more innovation in that sector. Last, let's say that our area is very competitive when we talk about touristic sector during a seasonal specific period of the year. Maybe our challenge might be to reinforce the offer all along the year. Even we know that it's quite difficult also because of the climate and so on. But that can be a good way to better promote the territory and what our territory is offering. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to remember to the speaker that the time is around 5-7 minutes, not more, because there is also one person more. And I'd like to give the speech to Mrs. Azra Ferizović of the University of Sarajevo. Okay, please.
Good afternoon to all. Talking about the mobility in the It's better? Yes. Talking about the mobility in the context of EUSAIR from the Western Balkan point of view, it is important to highlight three main issues. First issue, are our problems common? Second, why mobility is key. And the third one, could EUSAIR be a powerful mobility tool? Talking about the first issue, are our problems common? First of all, fragmentation in the Adriatic Ionian macro-region has resulted in huge gaps in infrastructure development level, particularly between the EU member states and the non-European Western Balkan countries. These barriers contribute to increase in transport cost and reduction in mobility and reliability of supply chains, decreasing the economic potential of the region as a whole. The low quality and density of Western Balkans transport networks influence the cost of inputs, production, and distribution, and therefore low national competitiveness. Regarding railway infrastructure, the global picture is quite similar to the road infrastructure in terms of the density of the existing network. It is more than 2 times lower than in the European average. It is very important to highlight that there is no consistent development for all modes of transport networks, what creates the huge intermodal gaps. Namely, the trend of high investment in road infrastructure, almost 10 billion euro in the Western Balkans, is present continuously from 2004, while the trend of rather small investment in rail infrastructure projects is changing slowly, just 1.6 billion euro. For the same period, in airport infrastructure has been invested 400 million euro, and for seaport infrastructure, just 100 million euro. In case of Bosnia and Herzegovina, for 1,500 kilometers of road, it has been invested 3 billion euros, and in the same time, for almost the same length of rail network, it has been invested 10 times less, just 385 million euros. It is also important to underline that Bosnia and Herzegovina is the only one country in the Adriatic Ionian region without physical seaport infrastructure. Even it is coastal country, what limiting possibilities for its truly integration into Adriatic Ionian area. Maintenance of transport infrastructure is still one of the major challenges in the region. The price of maintenance per kilometer is greatly different among the Adriatic Ionian region economies, and there is no consistent methodology among them. Railway liberalization reform and harmonization of the sector policies with the EU railway framework of directives and regulation is a slow process across the Western Balkan region. The railway market in the Western Balkans is still closed compared to the European Union, and further actions toward railway liberalization are necessary. The railway sector is also facing with a low level of technical interoperability. In the field of intermodal transport solution, there is a clear regulatory and institutional gap, as well as a lack of financial funds for their development. Complex and long-lasting cross-border procedures directly decreasing the level of service quality and have a negative impact in terms of the mobility. Talking about issue 2, why is mobility key? Sustainable mobility is the top European policy issue and focus of macro-regional and national transport strategies. Increasing mobility and connectivity as a result of transport development creates growth potential by improving quality of connections, removing bottlenecks, improving services, leading to advanced economic development. Removing physical and non-physical barriers to transport increase mobility and create safer and less congested travel. Efficient transport system can increase the volume of trade and movement of people through decreased cost of trade, thus contributing to higher growth. And the last but not least issue, could EUSAIR be a powerful mobility tool? The EU strategy for Adriatic Ionian region should be an essential contributor to the EU accession process for the Western Balkan countries by providing them with opportunities for close cooperation with EU member states. Indicative actions defined by action plan of the Pillar 2 connecting the region have in focus developing the Western Balkans comprehensive network. That means gives answer on my first questions from the beginning of this presentation. Improving the accessibility of the coastal areas, developing motorways of the sea, railway reform, development of air transport, and cross-border facilitation. By opening the transport market, establishment of competitive, reliable, and safe transport system, and increasing of effectiveness of border crossing procedure will result in increasing of the mobility within the whole region, supported by new long-lasting sustainable investment tools. And my last key message, efficient responses for mobility demands supported by ITS can enable effective mobility governance and greater efficiency and sustainability in a passenger and goods transport in the Adriatic Ionian area. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your position paper. Thank you. And please, Mrs. Olja Cokorilo, Faculty of Transport and Traffic Engineering, University of Belgrade.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Angelotti, for the invitation and for organizing this meeting. I'm coming from the University of Belgrade with a huge experience in scientific and commercial projects within transport area. So today I decided during the preparation for the speech just to share some of my experience that I reached until now. First of all, we are today here to discuss important issues about Adriatic Ionian strategy, particularly pillar number 2, which is considering connectivity of the region. And in my experience, I think that when we discussing about mobility within the region, we should focus our attention to 3 general pillars. First of all, we need a science to give some answers on the questions why we have to do some things, to provide some project, and where we want to share or do some future interventions. It's really hard to give some answers, particularly on mobility. We prefer to speak about accessibility, about equity issues, about some future development scenarios, about the valorization of the results. And as Marina previously said, obviously all of us, we have so many problems with data collection. So from my point of view, I think that the initiative of creating a maritime transport observatory is something really, really huge for the region. We need some kind of list of priority projects, data collection, some kind of I don't know, service library or safety library, just to have all these important data and issues on one certain place. It's a huge problem, obviously, in all these projects that were done in the past, and of course, if we don't make some kind of this observatory, we will have also a problem for inputs for future studies. That's my sincerely thinking and experience from projects before. Secondly, when we detect some bottlenecks or some necessary interventions, services, maintenance, or some huge things on the certain network, we need an answer to the question what we shall do or what we want to do, and then we need the participation of public or private sector. Nevertheless, we can speak about the local, regional, we can speak about modal share, hinterland connectivity, or whatever, but we must decide what exactly we want to do with a certain region, with a certain transport mode. And the public-private sector has this huge role in infrastructure development for all of us, providing integration into the regional and international networks which all surround this certain region. We are aware that this is not the only one strategic goal. We have each country participant has so many possibilities to participate, but it is important not to overlap all these activities and strategic projects. At the end, we need to ask ourselves how can we manage this. This is sometimes political question, sometimes this is a public question. We need to find relevant institutions, relevant funding sources, private or governmental, or I don't know, from the level of the European Union, but we need to find resources to provide all these priorities and challenges that we set before. So the public sector, in that way of thinking, would provide to us institutional capacity building with all this harmonization of the legislation and development of this regional and territorial networks by transport mode. And at the end, when we put the very nice label on our projects and our ideas, and when we find a way how to resolve all these things, we need one more step. This is not, I would not call it the pillar, but it's very important to make the promotion of all this work. And it is seriously important because, for example, Easy Way is one of the very rare projects that cover all these three issues. But if future users of the services, if they don't know the improvements on the network on particular ports, they will not use it. So it is important that everyone, not just the partners in the project, not just the authorities, but the normal people, the tourists, user of this service, that they heard what is the new for them, and how they can arrange some future trips or maybe some other possibilities. It's really very hard, hard to change some habits. For example, in Belgrade, after 15 or 20 years, we built the new bridge, and old users, they still use old bridges, which are almost every day totally crowded. And so we need to change our thinking about new projects and what we have done for this region and for this community. And I think that our main role is not just to suffer during the project realization, but also to promote in the best way those future activities for people in the next 30 or 50 or 100 years in the region. Thank you.
you. I apologize for not pronouncing rightly names, but Elen Twrdy from the Faculty of Maritime Studies and Transport of University of Ljubljana. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman. The pronunciation was good. So my name, and thank you, Mr. Angelotti, for inviting me. My name is Elen Twrdy. I came from University of Ljubljana. So Ljubljana is in the center of the Slovenia, but our Faculty of Maritime Studies and Transport, is in Portorož, so we are on the coast. And we do a lot of expertise also for the Port of Koper, so we are very good involved also in this, let's say, business side of the maritime transport. In the beginning, you asked us what are priorities. So I think that we can find two priorities from our side. The first one is to connect all transport modes in one very efficient way. And the other one is to establish a network of experts from different countries and also from different fields. And I think that observatory is a very good start for this, because now we can have all the studies, all the expertises, all the things that have already been done in one place, and everyone can find these things on this one place. So when we talk about the mobility, we all know that mobility is very important for the country, that without the good roads, railways, without the good ports and connection from these ports, the economy is in very big troubles, let's say. And mobility today, it's different that was mobility 10 or 20 years ago. Today, it's very important to obtain a very smooth, smart, efficient, environmentally friendly move of goods and of passenger. And in this project, we start with this idea how to promote the maritime passenger transport and how to obtain more passenger that will go from the road to the sea. So how to connect all these modes in one very good way. As it was said before, it's important or it's necessary to remove all bottlenecks in the infrastructure, but also the bottlenecks in the organization. And in such way we can then find a very good and let's say efficient transport. With all additional services, it's possible to achieve the main objective of this pillar. And then the second one, the networks. We know that the role of universities, as Olja said before, it's very important because but we have this academical view, and it's necessary to establish a good collaboration also with the business, because in this way we can do the very good studies and very good proposals. In Easy Way project, we have done this. We in our studies we built guidelines for establish sustainable and environmental friendly services in the field of maritime passenger mobility, and we also prepare some scenarios for these IPA countries, and then in these scenarios we try to predict how the passenger traffic will grow in the next years, and what is necessary to do this to obtain, let's say, a very good and smart well, okay, this. So, thank you for now.
Thank you. We arrived to Croatia now, and Adriatic, Faculty of Maritime Studies, University of Rijeka, very close to Trieste. Please, what is your opinion about the key issues?
Thank you very much. As Professor said, my name is Adriatic and I come from the University of Rijeka, Faculty of Maritime Studies. I am the head of Logistics and Management Department. I would like to point out to one problem which is affecting mobility. Maybe not, problem is not the correct word. I think it's a barrier, a non-physical barrier, and that is the non-application of information and communication technologies. As you know, we have a huge gap in ICT implementation throughout the region. Even within the same country, for example, Croatia, we have a huge gap in ICT implementation. I will just say one example. Croatia's largest port, the port of Rijeka, still doesn't have a port community system. A system which is intended to exchange information and electronic messages between the stakeholders inside the seaport cluster. The second largest port, Port of Ploče, has had a port community system for the last 5 years. The government has started implementing some segments of a port community system, but for now it's only related to the arrival and departure of ships, of vessels. Regarding cargo, there is no information exchange whatsoever on electronic basis. So this problem, in my opinion, poses a large threat to the mobility, to the connectivity within the region, because when you don't have the access to the information at the right time or even in the real time, then the whole transport process is slowing down. So, in my opinion, infrastructure, of course, is very much needed, and the investments in the infrastructure are large and take years or decades to pay off. On the other hand, investments in ICT pay off much sooner. You can see the results within months when you implement such a system. For example, Koper in Slovenia now, I believe, has the 4th generation of information system which exchanges information regarding the cargo. As I have said before, Port of Rijeka, Croatia's largest port, still doesn't have such a system. Individual companies within the port, of course, have ICT systems, but there is no information exchange even within the seaport cluster. As you have heard before from some colleagues, the idea is to construct a global port community system, which is, of course, a great idea, but we have to start from the bottom. We have to implement ICT inside individual ports, namely Croatian ports, to be able to broaden such approach to the country level, then to the regional level, then to the European level. So, in my opinion, ICT is not only a service to help the business processes, it can also be used as an important tool to re-engineer the business processes, because when you try to implement ICT into something, you have to analyze the business process from the beginning to the end, and while doing so, it is easier to implement re-engineering and to harmonize, to facilitate, and to make business processes easier. And that is about what I was meaning to say. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Last presentation by Mr. Guido Piccoli, ALOT from Brescia.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Vittorio. Thank you, Massimiliano, for the invitation. Well, I'm the last, so I can say all the previous priority are the ones, so really difficult to add anything, but I will point from a different point of view the question. So not in details about which infrastructure, which model shift, which, but generally from the point of view we have as a private consultant which was established on the basis of an experience on a public institution in-house, which was working for 4 provinces, Brescia, Bergamo, Mantova and Cremona, so really important industrial area in the center of Pianura Padana between Venice and Milano. And we're still working with private sectors and public administration, so we have this really good opportunity to understand which are the different communication skills and timing on proceeding from the 2 worlds. And on the other side, we're lucky also because we are providing contents as a consultant in different issues and provide a European project in development, which requires a successful rate of approvals. And that's not to say we are good, but just to say that the world has been changed during the last programming period from activity-oriented project to objective-oriented project. I'm not talking about methodology in academy. I'm talking about what should be the proper, good process to develop investment to be able to fund investment and apply this. Because the gap we have is not about money. The money are available. It's not about the technology, because technology is available, but they're not applied. So we are really lucky in this way because we are being obliged as a company on the market to provide the best technology methodology, like a logical framework approach, like working on objective and so on, and then go to the result and activity and measure the activity and the result to demonstrate that we are really efficient. And that is what we have as a big gap actually on this market. And another point from my point of view is we're talking usually on smart, sustainable, inclusive growth. There's really normal keywords in the European environment, but then we are working separately. We are really fragmented, particularly in this area, between the different countries, different community. We are not able, under public administration, to work closely between spatial planning, sustainable mobility, efficiency and energy. We have different issues which are linked, and which one is affecting the other. But we are not capable to work together in the public administration itself, ministry, cities, and so on. So the result is that we have a high fragmentation, low efficiency, low accessibility, and based on our experience in the projecting in different European areas, from the north of Europe, from Med, from Alpine area, and so on, we see that this is really our IPA area, one of the most emblematic in this sense. So to go to the consequence, if I talk about investment, if I'm a private, I want to invest, first of all, I would say I will never invest where it's too slow the decision process. I will never invest where it's uncertain, normative, application of normatives and so on. I will never invest where I have generally no governance of the area. So the proposal is, first of all, to have a kind of common vision and common action and a really close system of measure the result. That will create no fragmentation and also a very good communication and action between business community and public administration. That's, for me, is the first issue, absolutely, in particular in this area. Otherwise, we are competing on the level of poor competition and not the result. And that is the second point, is of course the common vision between the local level and global level. Because on the single local level, we have a problem between private sector and private sector. But then we have 1,000 ports in our area, and every port wants to do everything. So there is no space for. And then we look at the number. I was astonished by the number, for instance, of the 2 ports showed the strong decrease of the volume during the last decades. Okay, decreases. But we have other ports which take over all those decreases. So what is the problem? Maybe we have also to have a common vision this on global level. So that's the first priority, common vision, action, and measure. Second point is capacity building. Absolutely. We have a lot of information, we have a lot of technology, but we are not able to use it. We have no knowledge. We have no capability. That's a really big point. Not to say we are ignorant, but we are not capable to use those tools. And that is really the second point in the agenda. Then we are capable to develop a new railway, new port, use it for a proper business. not to be too arrogant, but just to say, methodology. And the third one, going on the lower level, is also not thinking about mobility as a pure aspect of transport things, but also think about the efficiency in terms of how to deliver which kind of information, data and so on, that was already mentioned, but how to provide sustainable energy efficiency within, because we have facing to a new world of e-mobility. I mean, we are particularly interested in these issues, and there was already a revolution on railway, electrification, but in the port, there's a big area where we have to invest now, because otherwise we will be late in the future. So the future port of North Europe and other are investing in new infrastructure for e-mobility, for shore-to-ship, for those solutions. If we are not capable to plan a port with electricity structure, then we are taken out from these solutions, and we will not compete anymore for the new ships and so on. That's another point, really, to prevent, of course, environmental consequences and also the acceptance of the citizen for a new investment as well. So that this will be my short agenda of priority.
Thank you to you all. I think the last intervention was really able to focus on some specific future-oriented issues, really, because involvement of business community and linking it to local administration is a key matter, and it is really very relevant from a practical point of view. I think that European projects should start to clearly focus on that kind of problems and issues, avoiding general strategy and not practicable, in fact, approaches. And the second is to the relation between local and global, which is very, very true. For example, just talking about port community systems and information technology tools. So we have also at Adriatic Ionian area a matter of how local forces and the local decisions have to be put into one single framework. But if you see really what is the situation, it is not only a matter of Ionian Adriatic region, because of single windows are managed at a national level, at European level, with a very complicated framework, which in fact doesn't allow to market-based ECT systems to develop, because there are many, many local interests and rules, and I don't know, just to mention local authorities as customs, and so who block the effective development. So if you want to discuss about port community system, it's an international and transnational issue, not only at a regional level. So there's a global dimension must be faced also by top level authorities, and this is just a mirror of the failure of the European Union in terms of capability to push really and to focus on, for example, port community systems. Sorry, I know it rather well, the matter, because we worked also around the North Adriatic Napa platform. In fact, it is not, there is no real thing to allow integration between PCS today. So this is a long, long way, but we should focus on those general targets, which are probably more important than discuss on mobility and smart growth in general. So thank you very much to all to you, and it's time to go to, thank you, bye.